Hello, we are with Musée Magazine today, and I am reporting one of our top 10 people of the year, 2022. I am Jessica Schonhoff, content writer and reporter, and I am with
Srilekha.
Awesome. Okay, so you are majoring in political science, sociology, with an emphasis on policy analysis with a minor in public health. What made you decide this path?
In high school, I wanted to be pre-med.
Okay.
I was going to major in neuroscience and have this entire path lined up for me. Was going to go to med school and things like that. But I guess I was part of debate and speech in high school, and that really changed my perspective on public speaking and what I actually am passionate about doing.
Yeah.
And so I guess over time I learned that my interests lie more in actually taking care of underrepresented communities, and my way of doing that was kind of getting involved in politics and government and the legal field, and I think over time I kind of grew that passion, and that's why I'm majoring in political science and sociology.
Yeah, that's a loaded, title for graduation, so good luck to them when you're walking across the stage, but that's awesome. So what's your ideal career out of college?
Yeah, I would say that, actually there's a story behind this. In high school, I was a member of Women's Empowerment Club at our high school, and there's an organization, nonprofit, called Advocates for Human Rights in Minneapolis. They do a lot of work with providing free legal clinics and free legal services for underrepresented communities. So one of the lawyers from there came and spoke at Women's Empowerment Club, and she was this traveling human rights lawyer that found loopholes in different laws that affected women. And I heard her story, and I was like, wow, I don't know, this is something that I feel I would really love to do someday.
Yeah, just clicked.
Yeah. And I think ever since then, I feel I've always wanted to go into human rights law and public policy, and I feel that's my way of kind of contributing to helping others and taking care of others. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Wow. Okay, so one of the reasons you were nominated for this Leadership and Community Contribution Award is that you're wonderful at public speaking. I know you said, was it debate?
Yes.
That you were in high school?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to people that are maybe not so great at public speaking and want to learn or want to improve?
Mm-hmm. Actually, for the longest time, until I was about 15 or 16 years old, I was an extremely quiet kid. I feel a lot of people around me, especially my friends, knew me as the quiet kid, and I would never speak up in classes. I would never do anything because I was just so anxious about speaking up. And I think being a person of color also didn't really help. My school is predominantly white, and kind of being in that space, I didn't feel comfortable speaking up. And I think something changed when I got to around my junior year of high school, and I was just I know I have things to say, and I'm not sure why I'm not saying them at this point. And so I don't know how I made that switch, but I just did, and ever since then, I feel I've always had something to say, and I've always tried to voice my opinions and whatever I think in the best way I could. So it kind of just took practice, and even being part of debate and speech definitely helped, but I think it was that mindset shift that I was I want to be someone that people can hear. I don't know.
That want to be heard. And finding value in your voice. Yeah, for sure. You're passionate about equitable care for underrepresented communities, as you kind of touched on. How do you believe students on campus can contribute to educating themselves?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, honestly, we can do. I feel I'm not even that aware as a person, and there's so many other things I could be doing right now. But I think overall, making conscious decisions to educate yourselves, whether it is part of a student organization, or if you're even an individual studying at the University of Minnesota, there are so many classes that you can take if it fits into your schedule, where you can educate yourselves. And specifically, I took this one class race and racism in the U.S.
Okay.
My freshman year, and like a lot of the information that I learned through that class was information that I kind of knew because I was doing my own research. But at the same time, like being a part of that class, like people that don't really know, kind of coming into this atmosphere with being at a predominantly white university, it would be so important for people to kind of get that information, and getting your hands on that kind of training and anything regarding that would be really important for students especially.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. Even myself, I mean, for my time here, I've grown in a lot of ways, and I still have a lot to go on that topic.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
I think there's always ways for us to keep getting better and keep learning. Yeah. I think the one thing is now, I feel like we're so burnt out as individuals with everything that's been going on with like the pandemic and just everything. I think we have to kind of find whatever is left in us to kind of advocate for those voices that aren't heard, because it is important.
No, completely.
Yeah.
No, completely. And that's great why you're here today, So you're kind of taking another flip in a direction. You're now a CLA Student Board Secretary.
Yes.
What does that position entail?
Yeah, so CLA Student Board kind of focuses, it is the official student government for CLA.
Okay.
It kind of focuses on uplifting the voices of CLA students and providing resources for CLA students overall. Obviously there's a lot of students in CLA, and so the board kind of works to host panels and discussions. We're actually doing a speaker series coming up in March and April timeframe. I'm not exactly sure what the date is, but it's a really cool experience, and me being the secretary, I kind of have that internal like aspect of it, of my position, and I focus more on team morale and making sure that we as a board are more cohesive together, and just kind of executing like different events that we have planned. So.
That's really neat. That's very, very cool. You're a part of a lot. I mean, you were the ISA president from 2020 to 21. How has this organization allowed you self-growth?
I have so much to say about ISA. I guess kind of coming into college, before I joined college, my senior year in the spring, I found out about Indian Student Association through my sister, who also went to the university. And it was just, I was like, okay, I want to be part of something where I can kind of host these events. Like, because I would go to our annual fall show with my sister every year.
Cool. And
I was like, wow, like they are so cool. Like they pull off an entire showcase. Like that's amazing. And so I was like, I need to be part of this. And so I joined as a freshman representative, and even that experience was really enlightening. And the next year I was actually president. And so my sophomore year of college, which was COVID, the year of COVID, so that was extremely stressful, kind of going into like arena that I didn't even know about in the first place. And majority of my board, like new board, was new members. And so I had to like teach them their positions and kind of have us. As
you were figuring out your role.
Exactly, figuring out my role and things like that. But the one thing that I really wanted to emphasize, like my presidency year, was the importance of advocacy. And so I tried to do, I guess, everything in my power at that time, even with COVID and while we were all virtual. Like all of our board meetings would be virtual, everything would be virtual. I tried to increase that like importance of advocacy in whatever way I could. So one of the most important things that I did during my presidency was create this initiative called Dismantling the Narrative. So this initiative focused on specific like issues related to advocacy. The first one we did, I think, was focused on the farmers' protests in India. We also focused on, this year they did like casteism. So it kind of, they are like different topics that people know about, but not enough to the point where they actually, it's an opportunity for education. So that was kind of the point of the initiative.
That's very cool.
We also created our first website for ISA.
Wow, okay.
And ISA has been here since
yeah.
the 1980s
wow.
at the University of Minnesota.
Wow.
And
just recently.
Which is, yeah, so it was
wow.
it was really cool to kind of create a website because we had a lot of downtime just being at home and, you know, so we hosted virtual events. We tried to engage the community as much as we could. We hosted our first virtual fall show.
Okay, cool. Wow.
Yeah, and I feel like we did.
a lot. You
we
really
tried.
did.
We tried. But I don't know. I wouldn't trade it for any other experience because the amount of information that I learned about myself throughout that experience was just so enlightening. Like I really learned that I do like leadership and I like managing a group of people and I like talking to people and so I definitely learned a lot. But
no, that's that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, the list goes on and on. You are a student coordinator for the Asian Pacific American Resource Center. What has been your biggest takeaway from this experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, so as a student coordinator, I help lead this mentorship program called Aspire.
Okay.
And it's specifically for first generation and second generation AAPI students at the University of Minnesota. They also focus on like transfer students as well. Anyone that wants to acclimate to the community at the University of Minnesota and feels that they don't really have like a community. And so kind of coming into APARC, I had like student group experience, so it kind of made it easy for that transition. But even in the mentorship program, we focus on making that community like really strong, especially because I felt like I never had an Asian identity, even coming into college. I always tell this one story to people. My freshman year, I lived in Sanford Hall. Okay. And I went to an APARC event, got a free T-shirt in one of the, So I got a free T-shirt from APARC. I came back to my dorm and I was just wearing it around the halls. Because obviously it's a free T-shirt. And this person came up to me who's also Asian and basically goes, you're not even Asian, like how did you get a T-shirt? And I just didn't even know how to respond in that moment because a lot of the times like Desi communities are not seen as being Asian, even by the Asian community. Wow. And kind of being in America, I feel like the whole like census, I feel like we do fall into that Asian identity. Yeah. But at the same time, like I don't feel part of the Asian community at all. Wow. And so even that experience, like I just brushed it off as, oh, like whatever. I don't know. I just didn't really see it as something that mattered at that time. But then over time, I kind of thought about it and I was like, this is not actually okay. This is not. So I don't know. I think over time, like I feel more integrated into the Asian community because of APARC right now. Yeah. And that makes me, I think, happier and feel like more about like part of a community. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like the Desi community is far removed from the Asian community a lot of the times. Well, I mean,
thankfully you're participating and, kind of going against that ideology. And wow, I mean, I think that must be very like reflective to like tap into that, like where you were like freshman year, like to be like, for sure. That's not okay, like you said. And wow, that's very impressive that that's great that you've had so much self-growth within that. Staff reporter. You were a staff reporter for the Minnesota Daily.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. What was that like? What was your job within that?
Yeah. Honestly, like I think about my time at the Minnesota Daily and it makes me really happy that I was part of that experience because I learned that I actually like journalism a lot. And I'm not sure why I didn't major in it, but I do really like it. And even reporting and like voicing someone's story is like makes me really happy. So I think that's one thing I learned through that experience. But I was also a reporter while I was president for ISA, so it's kind of hard to balance. Yeah. But my experience, I think, being virtual specifically, I never did in-person interviews. It was all over Zoom. I think it was really interesting to see how people responded to certain situations. I wrote a lot of stories on COVID and what the university was doing at that time. One of the stories that I wrote was specifically about like how many testing, like now COVID testing is so like readily available, right? Like I hope for most people, even though it's extremely inaccessible for a lot of people as well. But currently on campus we have it, and at that time we didn't. And I wrote a story about like how many vaccinations were happening, how many people were being tested, and it was really interesting to talk to these like public health representatives from the university who are like higher up, especially like Jill DeBoer and people like that. It was very interesting, and like to even hear what they had to say about it.
And
at
to
that
look
time.
back like now and be like, because so much has happened. Like that's a loaded topic. That's a loaded issue.
And I think like even now, kind of reflecting on the year of 2020, even 2021, it's 2022 now. Like it's
years,
wild.
Yeah.
But even reflecting on that experience, I feel like we all just have this collective trauma from the pandemic that no one addresses at this point. And I think, we need to address it.
I've never heard it being addressed until you just said that. So, but I can see that. Yeah, it's changed everything. And everybody was impacted in some way, but that's very interesting that you had such a hands-on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, this one's kind of tricky because you've done so much within leadership. What do you believe is the most meaningful way you have held leadership within the community of the U of M?
Yeah, I think probably being Indian Student Association president my sophomore year. It was honestly like a really, really enlightening experience. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I would put hours and hours of effort into what we were doing at the time, like events, any initiatives. Like, I was like, I have a platform now, and I want to use it in any way I can. And I know a lot of people, especially during the year of COVID, it was very difficult to do anything because people were getting burnt out so easily with online classes and things like that. But I think I tried to make the most of my experience, and even creating that website, that initiative, and continuing. We have an initiative called Humans of ISA that the presidents before me started.
Okay, cool.
And the initiative is basically like a blog post, kind of different, showcasing different Indians across campus and their stories.
Very cool.
And a lot of people talked specifically about mental health and like any depression, anxiety they were going through, or any cultural experiences, how they didn't fit into the community at the U of M, because the Indian community is extremely toxic at the U of M. And so it was very interesting to hear people's stories and kind of uplift them in that way.
Very intimate conversations.
For sure. Yeah. So I think like overall, I would say that experience was extremely meaningful, and that's something that I will probably carry for a really long time. That's
great. That's really, really cool. Well, thank you so much. That was, you're incredible. I'm excited to see where you go after you. But thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Yes, thank you.